Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be recommending to you some children's and young adult books for the Irish Readathon. If you don't know what the Irish Readathon is, I will leave all of the information linked down below in the description, but essentially it is a month that myself and my co-host and very dear friend Aoife run every year, where we are encouraging you to read more Irish books than you normally would. So if you just read one Irish book, then you are participating in the readathon, but we also have some prompts and some challenges if you would like to push yourself with your reading a little bit more. All of the information will be linked down below, as will our Discord server where we are discussing things all Irish readathon. One of our prompts for this year is to read a children's book, and in that we are also including books for teens and young adults. 2 years ago I did a video recommending books for the same theme, so I will leave that linked down below as well and in the cards if you want to check that out. I definitely still stand by all of those recommendations, but today I thought I would recommend to you some more Irish kids and YA books. So I'm going to kick things off with Frankies World by Aoife. This is about Frankie, who feels and behaves quite differently to a lot of her friends and classmates. She doesn't really feel like she fits in with them. She thinks quite differently, and Frankie is autistic, and that is something that she comes to discover over the course of this book. The author themselves is autistic, so they have first-hand experiences of that, and generally I think not feeling like you fit in is something that a lot of kids deal with, but I think especially if a child is neurodivergent, that's something that is just an additional challenge sometimes, but also, you know, an additional layer of uniqueness, and that's really special. Another aspect of Frankie's story is coming to discover more about her family, about her father, who she doesn't really know much about, which again I think is another topic that lots of kids are going to be able to relate to. Next, I'd like to recommend Love, Lucy by Marita Conlon McKenna. You may know this author for the Under the Hawthorn Tree series, and if you've read those books, you know that this author can definitely pack an emotional punch, and that is true of this book as well. So this is about a young girl named Lucy who has sadly lost her mother to cancer. So this really is the most difficult time of her life that Lucy has experienced thus far, and it really feels like her whole family is a bit of a mess. Her siblings are going through a lot as well. Her dad is trying to hold the family together, and as she is struggling to cope with her grief, Lucy begins to write letters to her mother telling her all about what's going on in her life with the family. But as she begins to write these letters, Lucy gets this strange feeling that maybe her mother is with her after all. This is a really quick read, especially because it is told in letters, and I think if you are someone who's read My Life on the Refrigerator Door, which is another novel that packs a huge emotional punch, then this is a similar sort of novel in that way. I'd also really like to recommend The Case of the Runaway Brain and The Case of the Phantom Treasure, both by Nick Sheridan. This is a children's mystery series that has kind of like Scooby-Doo sort of vibes to it. So in the first book, The Case of the Runaway Brain, we are following three friends who use their detective skills to unravel a mystery at Madame Strang's Academy for incredibly irritating children. And they discover that there's lots of strange goings on, there's definitely something suspicious afoot, and it might have something to do with brainwashing the children at this school. In the case of the Phantom Treasure, we are following our three young detectives again, this time solving the mystery behind a haunted shipwreck and some long lost treasure. What I really enjoy about these books is how the author is drawing on his experiences as a journalist and kind of teaching kids how to be little detectives and look for clues, and that is so much fun. And the author also looks at that kind of detective topic in his non-fiction book, Breaking News. I have a couple of pieces of non-fiction to recommend to you, and this is the first of those. Nowadays, children have access to information and news in a way that they never really have before. It's not something that I really had access to when I was growing up to the same degree that children do now. And it can be really difficult to figure out, you know, what is fact and what is fiction, what is exaggerated and what is accurate journalism. And in Breaking News, Nick Sheridan is giving children the tools to be able to assess that for themselves, to be critical, analytical readers. And he's also giving them an insight into what it is like to be a journalist, the different kinds of reporters and journalists there are, which I think could definitely inspire budding reporters and journalists of the future. What I really love about this book as well is that he also acknowledges that the news can be really difficult. There can be some really horrible topics, and it's important that children take care of themselves and know how to seek help if they find something in the news distressing. And as with this author's fiction, the non-fiction nonfiction is really, really funny. It's accompanied by illustrations by David O'Connell, which I think are definitely really funny and engaging for a child reader. And this topic could so easily be like really dry and boring, but Nick is just such a funny writer that it's definitely not like that at all. And the kind of examples and activities he gives in the book are really fun. Another piece of nonfiction is Break the Mold by Sinead Burke. So Sinead is an activist, she is a teacher, and she is also a little person. She is the first little person to have ever attended the Met Gala and appear on the cover of Vogue magazine. And in this book, she is drawing on her own experiences of being physically different to the mainstream experience. She looks at the challenges that she has faced because of that physical difference, but also the amazing opportunities that has given her. And this book is really a guide to celebrating and taking pride in your difference, to uplifting other people around you, to having pride in who you are, and using your voice to make the world a more inclusive place. Again, this one is also illustrated, so it has illustrations by Natalie Byrne, and I think this book is really uplifting in the same way that Marcus Rashford's nonfiction is, for example. Now, a series I haven't read yet, but I did want to mention because it's one I want to read, and it's also one that comes really highly recommended, is The Stormkeeper's Island by Catherine Doyle, and I also have the second book here, The Lost Tide Warriors. So this is about a character named Fionn Boyle, and it is set on the Arranmore Island. This is a fantasy series of children's books that is also inspired by Irish myth, so I can't kind of give like a full-hearted recommendation for this because I've not read it myself, but it is one that comes really, really highly recommended, and it's a series that I'm really excited to read. Moving into books for young adults, I also have another Catherine Doyle book. So this is Vendetta. So this is the first book in the Blood for Blood saga, and I don't think it's a series that like loads of people have read. I've not read it yet, so I can't kind of give you like a full wholehearted recommendation like I said, but it's one that I'm really excited to read. This is a romance novel, but I think it's kind of like mafia inspired for like teen readers. So it's a romance that also has like a lot of thriller and danger elements to it as well. Another young adult recommendation, this time one that I've actually read, is Honey and Issues Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagadar. You may remember that The Henna Wars was our group read for the Irish Readathon a couple of years ago. This is her second novel, and I actually enjoyed this one more than The Henna Wars. So we are following two girls in this book, the first of them being Hanny, who is really popular, but when she comes out as bisexual, her friends don't believe her. And then we have academic overachiever Issue, who decides that she wants to become head girl because she is comparing herself a lot to her older sister, and her older sister was never head girl, so this is kind of a way of her one-upping her sister. But becoming head girl relies on being popular, and she's not popular. The perfect solution is these two girls start fake dating, and as with all fake dating romances, you might have an idea how things end up. I think this author's books are so much fun. I really recommend them. I think they're really positive female-female romances, while also acknowledging that the challenges that there can be in being a queer teenager. I think how her books also deal with being a person of colour in Ireland is a really important aspect of these books as well, so definitely recommend them. I have just started reading A Million to One by the same author, which is a heist novel that is set on the Titanic, so looking forward to sharing my thoughts on this one with you when I've finished reading it. I also really want to recommend All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. So that is the first book in that series, and I've also read the second book, The Gifts That Bind Us, and I have the third book, Every Gift a Curse, on my TBR. So these are witchy Irish books that are focused on tarot. In the first book, we are following our main character who doesn't quite fit into the like academic setting, and one day she finds herself getting in trouble, and she has to clear out this old storage room at her school, and she comes across this old tarot deck. As she begins to experiment with this tarot deck, she comes to discover that she has quite a skill for it, but things start to go wrong when she does a reading for her former best friend, and she then disappears. These books also have fantastic queer representation in them, and kind of that experience of figuring out your sexuality and your gender as you are growing up. And I think these books also do a fantastic job of engaging in a kind of allegorical way about the political undercurrent in Ireland at the minute when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights, and particularly particularly when it comes to trans rights as well. I love a good witchy Irish book, so I was always going to love this series and really excited to read the final book in the series as well. I'd also really like to recommend Rock Paper Killers by Alexia Mason. So this one is definitely like for fans of Karen McManus, Holly Jackson. It's that kind of teen thriller mystery. So we are following 5 Dublin teenagers who go to the Gaeltacht to improve their Irish. So it's kind of like this summer camp where you go to where you speak Irish in preparation for your exams and refine your language skills. But they're always known for like a little bit of a party as well. The relationships between these 5 teenagers are complicated, to say the least. There's some really strong friendships there, but there's also some real tension there and animosity there. You've got quite archetypal characters in this book. So there's like the bad girl, the jock, the swot. And the tension throughout this book is building and building and building because we know one of these characters is not going to make it home. I absolutely raced through this book. I read it in one sitting on a plane and I just like didn't want to put it down. Like as I was getting off the plane, I was like still reading it. And I love how Irish language is like sprinkled into the story as well. I thought that was a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely recommend this one for a thriller fan. So that's it for me today. They are all of my recommendations. If you have any other recommendations of Irish kids or YA books, do leave them in a comment down below. I hope you're enjoying the Irish readathon. If you are reading a book at the minute for the readathon, do let me know what that is because I would love to chat about it. If you don't have anything in particular to say but you'd like to let me know that you are here, leave me your favorite green emoji. That is it for me today. I hope you guys are doing well and I will speak to you in my next video.